Hi guys, Mike here. In this video, I'm going to attempt to fully analyze Fischl's elemental skill, which is called NightRider. These are sort of metrics that I kind of came up with to see if I could try and sort of quantify how good the skill is. You can see each criteria is rated on a 5-star scale. And then notice I have two things. First thing is raw criteria. Raw criteria is basically the most basic aspects of the skill. And I would say they are debatable, but they, for the most part, are pretty straightforward. And then below that, you see I have derived criteria. And derived criteria kind of takes combinations of the raw criteria and gives it a out of 5-star rating on how good that aspect might be. So let's get right into it. So burst. Burst is how fast the skill pops off and starts to take effect as soon as you hit the the button that triggers your skill. So with NightRider, Oz, creates an AoE explosion as soon as he appears. So I would rate the burst pretty high. I put 4 stars here. I'm kind of leaning towards 5 stars now that I think about it, just because it's so fast. You know what? I'm gonna put 5 stars for burst. Not sure why I put 4 stars there. And remember, this try to think of the criteria. Just try to really isolate what that criteria is. So I know there's all these different aspects to the skill, like AoE, lingering, all that stuff. But try to isolate it. Just burst is just defined as like how fast the skill takes effect. So, and she may have a really good burst, but she may have crappy other attributes or raw criteria to the skill. So let's move on. So AoE hers is somewhat interesting. Her NightRider skill is kind of more of a single target skill, but when you trigger it, when Oz appears, the AoE, there's an AoE explosion to when he appears, and that's really the only AoE of the skill. And I was having a hard time trying to rate this because this skill is basically in 2 phases. So if you just rate AoE based on that initial burst, I would give it 3 stars. But if you want to, I can see someone giving it like 2 stars or less, because over the duration of the skill, that AoE is not really taking into effect for the whole duration of the skill. So I can see 2 stars. But with her constellation, she has a constellation that will increase her AoE to up to I think it's 50%. That's pretty good. I noticed it was a pretty substantial difference. Like once I got that constellation, it was quite good. So it really depends on how you define AoE. I'm just gonna give it 3 stars. It's actually pretty useful. So yeah, we'll just leave it at 3 stars for now. So the next raw criteria is lingering, and lingering I kind of define as how long is Oz on the field and doing stuff. And lingering has some important aspects to it that really affect the derived criteria. So I think it's kind of important to make note of this. And I timed it. It's 10 seconds. Oz will stay on the field for 10 seconds doing stuff. I think it's also in the character screen. It's also literally published there. It says 10 seconds. So for lingering, I'm gonna give it, right here I put 4 stars. I'm kind of leaning towards 3 stars now that I think about it a little more. It's either 3 stars or 4 stars. You know what? I'm gonna leave it at 4 stars because I feel like her effect, or Oz's effect when he's on the field, is still. Yeah, I'm gonna do it 4 stars for now. All of this is subject to change the more I play the game and stuff. And this This video is definitely probably like my version 1.0. I'm going to probably, yeah, I most likely will change things. So feel free to disagree with me in the comments. And if you make a good point, I definitely want to try get a more accurate representation of this. So lingering 4 stars. All right, number of hits. So number of hits is pretty self-explanatory. It's, even though Oz is lingering on the field for 10 seconds, he's not doing stuff for that full 10 seconds, right? He has very discrete shots at which he fires his missiles at. So first of all, when he appears, he has that 1 AoE explosion, so that counts as 1 hit. And then I counted, he would take 10 shots, so it's approximately 1 shot per second, and that's a total of 11 hits. So it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. I'm going to give it 5 stars, and this is kind of in comparison to the other skills that I've kind of had experience with. So I'm going to leave it at 5 stars for now. It's quite handy. It's quite a high number of hits, I would say. The next raw criteria is cooldown. Cooldown is pretty simple. You can even just go in the character menu in the talents section and just see for yourself what the cooldown is. It's 25 seconds. But sometimes I think of cooldown a little bit differently, because sometimes I'll kind of think of cooldown when the time I'm just waiting when Oz is not on the field. So even though it's 25 seconds, he stays on the field for 10 seconds. And at the 15-second mark for the cooldown, that's when he disappears. So essentially, I effectively have 15 seconds where I don't have Oz on the field. So that's one way of thinking about cooldown. Officially, it's 25 seconds, like from the moment you pull the trigger. But I'm going to give it a 2-star rating just because when I'm using Fischl and I'm using the skill NightRider, I always have this lingering feeling in the back of my mind that it's like, I wish Oz was on the field already, and it feels like the cooldown is just a little bit too long for my liking. So I would definitely not give it higher than 3 stars. I would give it 2-star. And remember, just because I give something a 2 stars in this raw aspect does not make the skill bad. It's just, they have to kind of balance the game somehow. They're not going to give her like a 10-second cooldown for this skill. So I think it's fair, and yeah, if you're looking for fairness, so I would just give it 2 stars. So hit damage is, you can kind of think of it as just raw damage. This one is a little bit hard to kind of define, because you could define it as just, if you just look at the character screen in the talents menu, you could just define it as the numbers, some percentage attack. This hit does this percentage attack. And then you have to weigh in, okay, do I add talent level ups, and then do I consider constellation effects, because some constellations significantly affect the damage. So I'm just going to kind of go with my gut for now, based on how this skill kind of performs compared to the other members of my party. I'm going to give it 4 stars. The reason I don't want to give it 5 stars, but I could see someone giving it 5 stars, is because I kind of want to give, in these videos, I kind of want to include the burst skills in the future. So, and I know the burst skills damage output and the hit damage is really high, so I can't see me giving higher than 4 stars for hit damage for Fischl's NightRider at the moment. Feel free to, let me know what you think. So utility is not really rated on a star rating. It's kind of just a description of observations, different aspects of the skill. So for someone like Veinti or those wind characters, they'll have a lot of utility in moving units around. And utility, I would say, is very subjective, because just because it's not on numerical 5-star rating, it's just what you kind of want to classify utility. Like even healing could be utility. So for NightRider, I would say I have 3 things that I would consider utility. One is an aimbot. So one is kind of like an aimbot. So Oz can just pretty much snipe units and always hit them as long as there's nothing in the way. Another utility I kind of put down is targeted placement. And targeted placement pretty much means you can decide where to deploy them when you fire off the skill. So that's pretty good for tactics and stuff. Like if you want to hit a bunch of units or you want to redeploy them to a more favorable position, you just got to remember like wherever you deploy him, if the enemy's out of range, he's not going to be attacking them. So there's some consideration and some skill involved, I would say. Relocation is pretty nice. It's say you place him over here and you don't really want him there anymore because you killed all the units there and you moved over here to try and kill this enemy. Well, you can just press the skill button again and he will disappear and he'll reappear right behind you, and then he'll start firing on the unit that's closest. It's useful. Like it's useful because you're not wasting the lingering effect. Like while he's on the field and getting the most out of those 10 seconds. One thing I don't really like is you don't really have that burst aspect to relocating him, because it takes some time he reappears instantly, but there's kind of a lag between when he starts when he reappears and when he starts firing again. So I just wish there's a little bit more burst aspect to that relocation. For example, like I wish like once he reappeared, he started firing immediately, but he kind of takes like a second to kind of just fiddle around before he starts firing again. So it's better than nothing, but I'm just kind of griping a little bit, but it's just something I wish the relocation had. So that pretty much is it for the raw criteria. So let's look at the derived criteria. The first one I have is hit rate and accuracy. So originally I was going to put this in raw criteria, but I felt it was a combination of a lot of the things above. So you can see it's a combination of kind of burst, AoE, and utility. And they're just to note, these things aren't like balanced evenly. Like for example, burst or AoE may be more weighted more heavily in this rating compared to utility. The same goes for all of the other derived criteria below. So they're somewhat subjective, but this is just my attempt to give it a rating. So for hit rate, I definitely got to put it at 5 stars, because Oz, you're not manually aiming Oz. Oz is just like a turret. He's just shooting at whatever's closest to him, and he's pretty much always going to hit the unit. The only time he won't hit the unit is if there's like something in the way. And if for some reason you put him next to a cooking pot and he starts attacking the cooking pot, actually, I think if there's enemies, he'll target the enemies first. I'm not too sure about that, but I just noticed he'll try to attack cooking pots and other random objects if he possibly doesn't have any good targets. But not to knock on it. His hit rate is really good. Will always hit. You can pretty much, like if you're out in the open, you can pretty much expect all 10 shots to hit. And making sure that AoE hits is kind of dependent on your own skill, but it's not that hard to hit that AoE, I would say. So next one is energy generation, and this one it's a function of number of hits, lingering, and cooldown. And I have to put it at 5 stars because I've tested this, and each hit that Oz hits will generate 1 orb, or energy orb, and it's really consistent, and it's a lot of energy coming in. And Fischl's on the field, and Oz is hitting his stuff, which he is 100% of the time, as long as there's nothing in the way. I always have her burst skill ready to be fired off, always, constantly. So yeah, energy generation is top notch. 5 stars, definitely 5 stars. One note is I put cooldown in this as a factor of energy generation rating. The reason I did that was because you can't generate energy if the skill is on cooldown. So, but just the combination of the number of hits and the accuracy with Oz, I'm still going to give it a 5 star. It's still really good. So next one is damage output, or DPS, and that's a little bit different from hit damage, because hit damage is just focusing on one hit, like how much damage it does. And not every skill has different number of hits that they do. as well as damage and lingering, and there's all different kinds of aspects to skills. So for damage output, this one is probably going to be controversial in the sense that I'm not super sure about this. I'm just going to kind of go with my gut. I would give it a 4-star rating. I wouldn't give it 5 stars just because I'm sure there are burst skills out there for other characters that are better that would earn the 5-star rating. So I'm just going to put it at 4 stars. But I would not. I would put it at 4 stars, but I wouldn't put it at 3 stars because 3 stars is just like average, but Oz and NightRider skill is definitely above average in my opinion. So I have to give it a 4 stars. And the last derived criteria is elemental reaction triggering. So I was trying to figure out how to do this. So elemental reactions, I would say, are pretty important in the game. And there needs to kind of be a way to quantize and, critique skills based on how well they can trigger elemental reactions. And I will admit this particular criteria is still, it's still in a draft phase, but you can see like I put literally everything can contribute to elemental reaction triggering. Number of hits, lingering, burst, AoE, effect, cooldown. AoE because you can if your elemental splooge is like all over the screen, then it definitely has high potential for elemental reaction. So this one still kind of works, but I would say I would give it a 4 stars because combined with the fact that Oz is like an aimbot, he can always reliably hit that electrical, get that electrical debuff on the enemy, and he can do it up to 10 times. So, plus the AoE, so that's 11 times. And I've kind of noticed like when I have, my fire unit just sending the grass to the field, and that pretty much always is keeping the enemy on a burn state. As long as I have Oz there, he can just keep firing his missiles, and he'll keep triggering the explosion reaction, time and time again. So it's definitely, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I can see it. I can see this rating going up to 5 stars, but definitely not 3 stars or lower. So, and one thing I forgot to do was put a kind of like a final rating on the NightRider scale. I would say it's it's either a 4-star or a 5-star type of skill. I'm really tempted to put it at 5 stars, but I kind of don't want to. You know what? I'm going to put it at 5-star. The overall, the whole skill, I would read it as 5-star. Feel free to, I don't know, for some reason I have a gut feeling I don't really agree with myself right now, but maybe you can convince me why it shouldn't be a 5-star skill, overall 5 stars. So, and just for the record, we'll just say overall 5 stars. Oops. Yeah, overall 5 stars. I'll definitely, I'm pretty confident I'm going to change my mind about this later, especially as I play more characters, evaluate more skills. And the only reason I'm skeptical of myself of giving the whole skill 5 stars is because I still haven't covered the burst skills yet, and the burst skills will probably give me more perspective into what this rating should actually be. But I don't know. Feel free to agree or disagree. Tell me. I really want to hear what you guys think about this skill. Just as kind of in the future, as a heads up, my party is, I can show you my party. I have Venti, Fischl, Xiangling, and Chi-Chi, and they're pretty much upgraded evenly. So probably expect more videos on these 4 characters. But if there's another character you're really interested in you want their skill evaluated, I'll probably do it. I have a few other characters as well. So yeah, this is, once I started playing Genshin, I knew I really wanted to try and evaluate the skills. So I definitely am going to make more videos like this. Hopefully I get my rating system more refined. But anyways, I'm starting to ramble. So feel free to subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys next time.